thought I was dead? Nah, man, I've been chilling with Big Sherry out in Undercliff.
No way.
Way. And now I'm off to try Shimla's. Heard that chicken down is serious.
When police walked into Tupac's mansion, they expected answers. Instead, they stumbled on a discovery that turned everything upside down. The home that once reflected his success hid something far more complicated, something that connects to a larger struggle quietly unfolding behind the scenes. The finding doesn't explain the full story, but it hints at a truth that was never meant to surface. And the deeper you look, the more the pieces start to shift. Whatever was uncovered inside that mansion, it changes the entire conversation. The mansion's hidden truths. Tupac Shakur's Woodland Hills mansion was more than just a lavish residence. It was a place layered with secrets that only came to light after his untimely death. The six-bedroom Mediterranean-style home, located on nearly an acre in a prestigious neighborhood, appeared to symbolize the success Tupac had fought tirelessly to achieve. But when police finally entered this property connected to Tupac's final days, what they found challenged everything the world believed about his life and legacy. Instead of simply a home, it was a stage for a far more complicated narrative involving financial intrigue, complicated loyalties, and a legacy under siege. Despite Tupac's platinum records and cultural impact, the mansion was not his in the traditional sense. It was leased through Death Row Records as part of a post-incarceration agreement, reflecting a relationship that blurred the lines between artist and label. Tupac was actually in the process of trying to buy the home with money he had already placed in escrow. A poignant detail that made what unfolded afterward all the more troubling. The house became a vibrant hub during his last months, but that life was about to take a sudden, dark turn. In the weeks following Tupac's slaying, an unusual and rapid clearing of the mansion took place. Instead of a respectful management of the estate expected after such a loss, the property was stripped of high-value items, vehicles, and critical musical equipment in a highly organized operation. This clearing was done by associates of Death Row Records, including figures linked to Suge Knight, rather than through official estate procedures. The speed and manner of this clearance raised serious questions about what was being hidden and why there was such urgency. The items removed were significant: jewelry, gold and platinum plaques, Tupac's trademark 1996 Hummer H1, and valuable studio gear that supported his creative process. Notably, the black BMW in which he was fatally shot was impounded separately. The absence of any formal police raid or on-site inventory points to a private handling that kept law enforcement and the public largely in the dark. This lack of transparency suggested a cover-up designed to protect interests more than respect an artist's estate. What remained inside the home told a ghostly story. Walls showed indentations from where artwork and sculptures had hung. The garage floor was scarred by motorcycles, and carpet impressions revealed where stereo systems and furniture once provided comfort. These marks felt like silent testimony to a life that had been abruptly disrupted. Among these traces, one piece stood out: hand-carved concrete near the pool etched with the phrase, "Outlaws, let no man separate what we create," a line from Tupac's song, Made Niggas. It was a deeply personal mark, the only lasting physical reminder of his time there. This contrast between what was taken and what remained silent in the house mirrored the larger contradictions in Tupac's final chapter. The mansion's story hinted at deeper layers of financial manipulation and loss that would only come fully into view through years of legal battles and investigative work. The visible was only a fraction of what the house represented, a symbol of a career constrained and a legacy contested. It was the stage for a story that was far more than a simple tragedy. The secrets behind the mansion drew attention not only for what was physically removed, but for the shadowy control Death Row Records exerted over Tupac's life and assets. This home wasn't just real estate. It was ground zero for a financial struggle that made the powerful into gatekeepers and the artist into a prisoner of his own success. As details unfolded, it became clear that the mansion's fate was inseparable from the fate of Tupac's music, money, and memory. More than a physical space, the mansion became a symbol of how fame and fortune could be manipulated behind the scenes. Tupac's struggles inside these walls reflected a much broader battle that would ripple through the hip-hop world and beyond. The discoveries made revealed a person caught in forces much larger than himself, forces that would continue to shape his story long after he was gone. This eerie glimpse into the mansion invites us to look deeper, to understand that what was uncovered there was the beginning of an unraveling, transitioning from the shadow cast by the mansion's emptied rooms. The next layer exposes the stark difference between the wealth Tupac publicly represented and the troubling reality of his financial situation. Tupac's illusion of wealth. To the outside world, Tupac Shakur embodied the American dream in hip-hop form, rising from poverty to become a platinum-selling artist with millions of records sold and a cultural impact that few could match. His walls were adorned with gold and platinum plaques, a testament to his commercial success that seemed to promise financial security and freedom. The sprawling Woodland Hills mansion, with its lavish features and prime location, reinforced the image of a man who had arrived at the pinnacle of fame and fortune. However, beneath this surface lay a vastly different truth. Tupac did not own the mansion. It was leased to him by Death Row Records as part of his post-jail contract with Suge Knight. The facade of prosperity masked a complicated and troubling financial reality. Tupac was, in many ways, still trapped in a system that restricted his control over his own earnings and assets. His purported wealth was entangled in deals and debts that few outside his immediate circle fully understood at the time. The most jarring revelation came from the estate's initial inventory, compiled months after his death. Despite generating over $60 million in record sales during his career, Tupac's net worth was estimated to be between $200,000 and $500,000. This paltry figure was overshadowed by a staggering debt of nearly $5 million owed to Death Row Records. Advances, lifestyle expenses, legal fees, and production costs contributed to a debt load that effectively nullified his earnings. This financial paradox was not accidental. Records show a pattern of systematic exploitation designed to keep Tupac in perpetual debt while enriching the record label and its executives, loans for bail, exorbitant lifestyle charges, hotel bills, and even unauthorized expenses like payments linked to others' support obligations were charged against Tupac's name. These practices created a complex web of financial control that hampered Tupac's ability to build lasting wealth despite his undeniable success. The estate's tangible assets were simply shocking for their limitedness. Apart from the shootings associated with Hummer H1 and BMW, as well as vehicles, Tupac did not possess any conventional wealth at all. None of the real estate, no stocks, and just a few banks holding his money. Jewelry and personal effects usually bore the marks of label advances, with many pieces unpaid and later embroiled in legal disputes. The celebrated awards and memorabilia frequently vanished from the mansion and were never properly documented in the official estate records. Adding further complication was the dubious nature of Tupac's contract with Death Row. The handwritten 3-page prison contract he signed in 1995 was highly contested and called by some legal experts as unenforceable due to conflicts of interest. This agreement basically tied him into a deal that sucked his earnings and kept him in a label that benefited from holding him miserable financially. It was a contract reflecting the cruel realities most artists face while navigating through the music industry. The emotional impact of being stuck in this financial trap was really high. Despite the number shown on paper, Tupac's readiness to confront these limitations through his music and talking was like a man who was desperate for liberation, both artistically and personally. However, the years leading up to his death were marked by an unauthorized and manipulative condition that did not allow him to own his legacy either during his lifetime or after his death. The disparity between public perception and actual reality raises the question of what success really meant for Tupac. The fame and fortune, no matter how alluring they were accompanied by the dark sides of control, debt, and legal issues that made the promise of freedom appear less attractive. His tale compels one to do a more profound analysis of the larger industry powers that impacted not only Tupac, but also a lot of artists who have come and gone before him and are still around today. Transitioning from the false shine of wealth, we glimpse the layered life inside the mansion, where community and celebration masked deeper, looming challenges. Life inside the mansion. Within the walls of Tupac's Woodland Hills residence, life was chaotic, vibrant, and filled with the energy of a man who was at once a superstar and a son, brother, and friend. The mansion was home not only to Tupac himself, but to his fiancée, Kidada Jones, the daughter of legendary producer Quincy Jones, as well as to family members like his mother, Afeni Shakur, and sister Sekiwa Shakur, along with her children, extended family, close friends, and members of the Outlaws Collective also found refuge there, turning the house into a crowded hub of activity. Visitors often described the atmosphere as similar to a fraternity party or college dormitory, with music blasting, laughter echoing through the halls, and people coming and going at all hours. Arcade machines, slot machines, and pinball games installed by Tupac reflected his youthful spirit and desire to create a space of joy amid a tumultuous life. The pool, with its waterfall and soaring ceilings, completed the image of a man who wanted to enjoy his success surrounded by those he trusted. Yet behind this convivial environment, there were signs of tension and unease. The house, though filled with celebration, also hosted a chaotic energy that came with the responsibilities Tupac bore. Many of the residents were young, some grappling with their own difficulties, and Tupac took on the role of provider and protector in a sometimes volatile environment. The mansion became a sanctuary, but also a pressure cooker, reflecting the complexities of the life Tupac led in his final months. More than just a home, the mansion was a symbol of Tupac's broader vision of community, loyalty, and resistance. The inscription he etched in concrete near the pool spoke to the bonds he believed were unbreakable. This message underscored the family-like atmosphere Tupac cultivated and the values he fought to uphold amid the challenges surrounding him. Despite the sense of unity, the shadows of outside pressures lingered. Tupac's connection to Death Row Records and Suge Knight, with all its complications, cast a long shadow over the home. Legal troubles, threats, and industry tensions often seeped into the daily life within those walls. The mansion was as much a fortress as it was a playground, balancing joy and vigilance. Friends and collaborators recall how, even in the midst of intense professional and personal pressures, Tupac maintained an electric energy that uplifted those around him. His charisma and creativity filled every room, even as the storm outside grew louder. This vibrant atmosphere captures the paradox of a man celebrated globally, whose life was charged with instability and danger. The presence of young relatives and friends also represented Tupac's deep sense of responsibility toward his community. He wasn't just creating art, he was trying to build a family space where those close to him could find support and hope. The mansion became a microcosm of Tupac's complex identity, a mixture of rebellion, care, and aspiration. As the lively energy inside the mansion faded, What followed was a chilling rush to erase physical traces of Tupac's presence, signaling darker forces at work beneath the surface. The swift clearance operation. In the weeks after Tupac Shakur's death in September 1996, his Woodland Hills mansion was cleared out with startling speed and precision. Instead of a careful estate process, the removal of his belongings unfolded like a coordinated operation. Within 2 months, associates tied to Death Row Records, many linked directly to Suge Knight, emptied the home of nearly all valuables. The efficiency and secrecy of the sweep quickly raised questions about what was being protected and what was being concealed. Among the items taken were some of Tupac's most personal and valuable possessions: diamond-studded jewelry, multiple gold and platinum plaques, prized vehicles, and essential studio equipment such as mixing boards and recording gear. Even his 1996 Hummer H1 vanished. The BMW he was shot in was impounded separately, adding another layer of confusion to an already murky handling of his assets. What remained in the home were faint outlines on walls, scratches on floors, and impressions in the carpet, silent traces of a life abruptly cleared away. The operation was already suspicious, but the lack of any law enforcement basically made it so there was no police action, no court-ordered inventory, and nothing was formally accounted for. Everything took place under private supervision, which made it impossible for the public to know what was going on. The label said it was just a case of safeguarding its property from thieves or legal disputes, but many thought the real aim was to take over Tupac's legacy before his family could react. The speed of the clearance practically wiped out all the traces of Tupac's work and life. Moreover, it represented a battle for ownership, not only of the material, but also of identity and creative output. For the fans and the estate, the already vacant mansion was a place of violation, a sign that the man who had built the house was being taken away in death, just as he had been in life. The mansion, though, complicated things even more, because it was leased through Death Row Records, which gave the label a legal upper hand and let them act promptly without the risk of supervision. This situation, with no clarity, went on to last for quite a long time and created a legal war between Tupac's family and executors who were trying to find out what had been taken and how to get it back. The missing gold records, the unaccounted-for jewelry, and the vanished equipment made the suspicion that the operation was more about erasure than preservation stronger. The rapid clearing of the mansion was a sign of the deep fight to come. It was a sign of the financial manipulation and power struggles that had been controlling Tupac's career. The polished exterior of the home hid a darker tale of control, exploitation, and the battle to recover the artist's legacy. The sudden stripping of the mansion's contents set the stage for the shocking revelations hidden within Tupac's official estate inventory, a document that exposed just how dire his financial situation truly was. Estate Inventory Shocker. When Tupac's estate inventory was compiled in late 1996, it shocked many who assumed his massive record sales and cultural influence would translate into solid financial assets. Instead, the report revealed a devastating reality. Tupac died with an estimated net worth between $200,000 and $500,000, a figure dwarfed by nearly $5 million owed to Death Row Records. This disparity exposed a complex web of debt underpinning Tupac's fortune. The majority of Tupac's income had been siphoned away through advances, production costs, lifestyle charges, and legal fees imposed by Death Row. Charges included a $1.4 million bail paid on Tupac's behalf, hotel bills totaling $300,000, and even questionable expenses such as payments for unrelated individuals' child support and credit cards. These debts created a financial trap, effectively keeping Tupac indebted to the label throughout his career. Aside from the debt, Tupac's actual tangible assets were surprisingly sparse. His vehicle collection included the Hummer H1 and the BMW involved in the shooting, both complicated by label advances and legal entanglements. Jewelry, often diamond-encrusted death row pendants, was mostly advanced by the label and unpaid after his death, leading to lawsuits against the estate. Famous awards and commemorations were removed from the home and went unlisted in official records, their whereabouts largely unknown. Tupac's lack of a will further complicated matters, forcing his estate to be probated under California law without clear directives. The inventory focused mainly on physical assets and bank accounts, uncovering only a checking account with a maximum balance reportedly around $100,000. Retirement accounts, stocks, bonds, or real estate owned outright were notably absent, emphasizing how little Tupac himself controlled in tangible financial terms. Central to this tragic financial picture was the handwritten 3-page prison contract Tupac signed in 1995. This agreement, overseen under questionable circumstances, was widely criticized for binding Tupac in a deal heavily favoring death row and Suge Knight. The contract was reportedly riddled with conflicts of interest and deemed by some legal experts as unenforceable. Yet, it continued to drain Tupac's earnings and restrict his freedom within the industry. The undervaluing of Tupac's intellectual property in the estate documents added another layer of injustice. While physical assets were cataloged, the unreleased music, writings, and creative works that would later prove worth millions were largely ignored or hidden. This omission was not a mistake but a strategic move, ensuring the estate would lack the knowledge or power to claim these invaluable treasures. Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mother and estate administrator, fought fiercely against these injustices. She launched a legal crusade to reclaim what was rightfully Tupac's, establishing Amaru Entertainment to manage his posthumous catalog. Her battle exposed the depth of exploitation Tupac had endured and sparked a decades-long fight for control of his artistic legacy and financial rights. The inventory's revelations paint a heartbreaking portrait. A man who changed music and culture profoundly, yet died trapped in debt and denied true ownership of what he created. Tupac's situation underscores the often hidden realities many artists face in industries driven by power imbalances and profit motives. Each step into the struggle over Tupac's legacy reveals not only what was lost, but also the resilience of those determined to restore his rightful place in history. Unreleased treasures discovered in the years after Tupac Shakur's death. The breadth of his creative legacy became clear through a series of remarkable discoveries scattered across Los Angeles. What many assumed lost, recordings, lyrics, demos, and writings, reappeared in storage units, private collections, and studio vaults. These were not merely archival scraps, but the living pulse of Tupac's artistry. One of the biggest breakthroughs came from public storage units containing more than 100 digital audio tapes with raw vocals from Tupac's 1995 to 1996 death row sessions. These recordings formed the backbone of many posthumous albums, allowing producers to complete unfinished tracks and introduce Tupac to new generations. Another unit held early demo tapes, mixing boards, and hard drives dating back to the early 1990s, revealing the evolution of his sound long before his death row era. Private collaborators also stepped forward with their own hidden archives. Producer Johnny J reportedly possessed more than 40 unreleased tracks, while Daz Dillinger held a comparable number from the death row years. Even early mentor Shock G contributed demos from Tupac's digital underground days. Studio vaults at Can-Am, Enino facility, and Death Row's Tarzana facility yielded additional masters, some partially released, others unheard entirely. Early estimates suggested around 200 unreleased songs existed. Newer evidence points to as many as 400 to 500, with dozens still tied up in legal disputes. The most interesting discoveries certainly include the handwritten poems and personal writings of Tupac. Indeed, the pieces entitled In the Event of My Demise and Genesis, the Rebirth of My Heart made known his thoughtful, radical voice, and later, friends such as Jada Pinkett Smith released these poems to the world, thus paying tribute to the emotional depth of character behind his public persona. The discovery of these materials led to the release of at least 7 main posthumous studio albums. Are You Still Down? Remember Me was on the list and was quite successful with multi-platinum certification. Meanwhile, compilations and soundtracks resulted in the total posthumous sales of over 40 million units. By the year 2008, royalties, licensing, and catalog sales brought in an estimated annual income of $15 to $20 million. The estate's value was then over $400 million, which is actually an incredible increase from its initial moderate post-1996 estimations. The entire process of getting this material secured and released was surrounded by conflicts. Every new finding led to lawsuits concerning who owned it, who had rights to it, and who would get the profit companies' opposing positions. Overlapping agreements and the debate over recordings turned these riches not only into artistic victories, but also into markers of the prolonged struggle to maintain Tupac's legacy. The works went from being buried in storage to topping charts worldwide, and in this way their rediscovery was a confirmation of Tupac's lasting power, and, at the same time, his downfall through a turbulent fight for the preservation of his voice, in a market where exploitation is of utmost priority. Even as these hidden treasures brought new life to Tupac's music, they became inseparable from the legal battles waged to defend his legacy, revealing the true cost of claiming what was rightfully his. The legal battles. The fight to reclaim Tupac Shakur's estate became a long, complex legal struggle, largely driven by his mother, Afeni Shakur. Only months after Tupac's death, she sued Death Row Records, accusing the label of running a criminal enterprise and withholding more than $50 million in royalties from albums including All Eyes on Me. Her lawsuits exposed the exploitative financial systems that often trapped artists, revealing how deeply the industry controlled creative output and revenue. Death Row countered with claims that Tupac owed millions in advances and expenses, production fees, a $1.4 million bail payment, and dubious charges like tens of thousands for a Porsche he didn't own. They also listed expenses tied to associates and family members. This back-and-forth litigation highlighted the murky, restrictive financial arrangements that shaped Tupac's career. A breakthrough came in 1998, when Afeni reached an out-of-court settlement restoring more than 150 unreleased masters to her company, Amaru Entertainment. The deal forgave half of Tupac's alleged debt and raised his royalty rate to 18%. These recovered materials enabled a wave of successful posthumous releases and established Afeni's stewardship of Tupac's creative archive. Legal challenges continued. After Death Row filed for bankruptcy in 2006, Afeni negotiated settlements securing additional unreleased tracks and advances. But when Canadian company Entertainment One purchased Death Row's assets in 2009, new disputes emerged over breached contracts and withheld materials. In 2013, Afeni sued the company for failing to honor the release agreement for Beginnings, the lost tapes. The estate won a significant settlement in 2018, reclaiming unpaid royalties and more unreleased music, another victory in the ongoing effort to recover Tupac's intellectual property. Afeni's death in 2016 introduced new turmoil. She appointed music executive Tom Whalley to manage the estate, but family tensions quickly surfaced. In 2022, Tupac's half-sister accused Whalley of mismanagement, excessive fees, and restricting family access to Tupac's belongings, claims that led to a series of lawsuits. Controversy deepened around public exhibits like the Wake Me When I'm Free Museum, whose closure in 2025 did little to ease ongoing disputes. Court filings continued into 2025, alleging Wale's non-compliance with court orders. Beyond management issues, the estate also faced intellectual property lawsuits. In 2025, the estate of Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad filed several federal cases alleging unauthorized use of his speeches in Tupac's music. These unresolved suits reflect the complicated intersection of art, legacy, and copyright. Decades after Tupac's death, the struggle over his estate underscores a larger battle to protect his voice, integrity, and artistic legacy amid competing family interests and corporate pressures. As legal maneuvers persist, the search for answers to Tupac's slaying adds another layer to a story already steeped in mystery and tragedy. The slaying investigation links. Decades after Tupac Shakur's 1996 slaying, new developments have revived scrutiny of the case. In July 2023, Las Vegas police searched the home of Paula Clemens, the wife of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. Her nephew, Orlando Anderson, long considered the prime suspect, was slain in 1998, but Davis's own accounts have placed him at the center of the plot. A former Southside Crips leader, Davis admitted in recorded interviews and in his 2019 memoir, Compton Street Legend, that he was in the vehicle the night Tupac was shot and identified Anderson as the gunman. Although he denied pulling the trigger, he described the attack in vivid detail. In September 2023, prosecutors charged him with first-degree slaying, gang enhancement, and use of a deadly weapon. Reviving the case nearly 27 years later, grand jury transcripts released in 2025 detailed the intense gang rivalries behind the shooting. Conflicts among Death Row Records and its Mob Piru Blood affiliates, Bad Boy Records, and the Southside Crips had escalated in the weeks before the attack. A stolen, diamond-studded death row medallion gifted by Suge Knight further inflamed tensions. Testimony and statements from deceased witnesses deepened links between the music industry, gang politics, and the violence surrounding the slaying. One of the main reasons for the controversy was the rumors about Sean "Diddy" Combs putting out a $1 million bounty on Tupac and Suge Knight after the Source Awards. In 1995, Combs has rejected this allegation, does not have any charges, but the rumor marks an aspect of the situation that included an explosive mix of artistic competition, gang ties, and commercial power struggles driving the era. In the past, Davis was granted partial immunity during a 2009 meeting with the LAPD. Nevertheless, the prosecution maintains that it is not valid in the present case. His inconsistent statements, along with the claims of innocence, mark the difficulties of the investigation that have lasted for decades. His court case, which is set for early 2026, is likely to go through more than 15,000 pages of documents. The renewed investigation mirrors the continuing disputes over Tupac's estate and the inheritance of his artistic legacy. His mansion in Woodland Hills, which was soon after his death completely emptied, was a sign of the exploitation and the weakness he had to live with during his success. The heaps of unreleased music and writings scattered around studios and storage spaces also show his high productivity and the disagreements over controlling his artistry. Although Tupac's work is still a source of influence for millions, the unresolved matters relating to his estate bring forward the larger power, ownership, and recognition struggles. The interlinked pursuits of justice for his slaying and clarity over his legacy provide a bigger picture of resilience, further conflict. The life, death, and tremendous influence of Tupac Shakur are not only tangible through his art, but also through the never-ending demand for truth and accountability. Tupac's story is a powerful reminder of the battles behind fame, the fight for control, respect, and justice that can define a legacy. His music still moves millions, but the truth uncovered at his mansion and beyond challenges us to look deeper. If you found this eye-opening, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories that reveal what really lies beneath the surface. And when you're ready, watch the next video on your screen. There's more to uncover.